Hey, entrepreneurs, are you trying to make bigger profits in your small business? If you're like most of us business owners, increasing your profitability is always on your mind. And you're probably looking for ways to grow your revenue while growing your company. Well, you found a podcast that shares ideas to help you do just that. I'm Marcia Reiner, also known as the Profit Booster. I'm a business growth strategist. I've helped tons of small business owners to establish and implement a tangible plan that guarantees increased profitability, guide your growth, and plans for your future exit. Because building a highly profitable and sale-ready business creates a win-win scenario. That's more money now and a windfall when it's time to let go. And I want to share strategies that I've learned with you on today's Profit with a Plan podcast. But before we get started, I have a great event coming up, so please mark your calendars. On July 29th, I am being partnered up with 3 other business experts and presenting a business acceleration event on Saturday, July 29th. And we are going to be sharing 12 costly profit-killing mistakes that are stalling your growth. So join us for just 2 hours. I know it's Saturday, but it's going to be the best 2 hours you've spent, where 4 experts are sharing 12 strategies that will help you accelerate your business. Hey, it only takes one to change the course of your business and your life, and we're giving you 12 to choose from. So register today at Join Accelerate Now. All right, I'm super excited to have my guest on with me. A fellow Californian for the moment is Beate Chelette, and she is a growth architect and the founder of the Women's Code. She creates strategies, designs process maps, and blueprints for visionaries and leaders who want to maximize their profit and scale their impact. A first-generation immigrant who found herself $135,000 in debt as a single parent, Beate bootstrapped her passion for photography into a highly successful global business and eventually sold it to Bill Gates in a multi-million-dollar deal. Beate is one of the 100 top global thought leaders for 2021 by People Hum and one of the 50 most followed women entrepreneurs by HuffPost. And she is the author of the #1 international award-winning Amazon bestseller, Happy Woman, Happy World. How to Go from Overwhelmed to Awesome. A book that a corporate trainer and best-selling author Brian Tracy calls the handbook for every woman who wants health, success, and a fulfilling career. So Beate, thank you so much for coming on Profit with a Plan podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today.
I am super excited to be here, especially, the word profit. I mean, immediately got my attention.
Right. I know we're both always talking about it. And it's so funny. It's one of the most common misunderstood line items in business owners' P&Ls these days. They just look to the bottom and think that that's it. But there's so many nuances to it that can really enhance it. But, let's circle back real quick here. You came from a bootstrapped, single parent with a ridiculous amount of money in debt to getting out of that. How in the world did you turn into coaching businesses from there?
Yes. So after I sold this business, after this decade of bad luck, which I describe as somebody with a cast iron frying pan, not the non-sticky Teflon one, but the heavyweight cast iron ones.
One that everything sticks to.
Oh, holy smokes. Yeah. I was like, boom, you get hit over the head. So after I've had my exit, and then here we are, and I have I have the money, and I'm thinking, let's do something very sensible. Let's go shopping at Bergdorf Goodman. And so my daughter and I went shopping, and I looked at a $200 t-shirt and a $2,500 trench coat from Burberry. And I remember, I'm looking at this, I'm going like, I remember now why I was never interested in buying it then. And I am not starting to buy this now. It just wasn't, because sometimes you think you want to go somewhere to do something, and then you are there and you go like, nah, this is just not even worth it. So we literally walked around and left afterward.
Isn't it funny when you have money and you want to spend it, you don't find anything. And then when you're out there and you're like, oh, I don't have any money to spend, you find all the things that you need.
Possibly something like that. And so then I realized that I had always had the sense that all the stuff that I went through had to be good for somebody, or somebody had to derive a benefit from this. And that's when I decided that I was going to share my knowledge. And I first started with women's code, and I wrote my book, Happy Woman, Happy World. And then from there on, little by little, I felt, I needed to go broader, and I needed to go broader. So I did some photography coaching, some creative entrepreneur coaching. And then I went to business in general. And then I realized that I actually don't like coaching as much as I do strategizing. And that's when I came up with the whole brand around growth architecture, strategies, workflows, processes, and systems. All the stuff a lot of people think is boring and soulless and number driven and has no creativity. And I designed it in such a way that it's like a creative sandbox. I just provide the structure for the sandbox.
I love it. I love it. It's funny where the world guides you, right? And you find this and you don't like it. You find that and it feels good and it feels impactful, and people like the way you're doing that. And it just feeds into this evolution of this company that you create for yourself. And I just love it when people have that kind of epiphany and they move into it and they accept it. So it's like a lot of us entrepreneurs end up doing something similar, and oftentimes get stuck in the minutia and can't continue to grow in it. And I think strategies, which you so eloquently said, are the way to really drive your business in the direction that you want it to. It's just a bunch of tactics put together in a simplified process that's repeatable, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at it from a perspective of, what is strategy? Like, how do I even define strategy? Well, strategy is the way in which you go to achieve a particular outcome. That means that in order to have a strategy, you must have an outcome or a strategy well defined. So that goes now back. If you look at any of the mindset teachings, what does everybody say? Visualize your outcome. If you look at a scientist, or if you look at somebody, anything in nature, when the bear gets hungry, the bear gets food. The decision is made because an event happened, and then the action follows. So we have to remember that if it exists in a law, in nature, in spirituality, in life, in the world, then these laws apply to us as well. That means we need to first have the goal. So now if my goal is to run a business, that's not really a goal. That's an action, right? So go ahead, run your business. If your goal is to run a $1 million business with a $500,000 profit, now we can design a strategy, which is the path that will get you there. But that's, I think, why people, I think it's almost like when people don't want to look at their numbers or their spreadsheets because the numbers are bad, and they don't prefer not to look because then they don't know how bad it is. Exactly. I think strategy is very much the same way. People don't want to talk about it because they don't have any.
That is probably the biggest correct answer I've heard in a long time. That business owners, they fly by the seat of their pants through business. I preach, you got to have a business plan, and your plan is a working plan that you're going to, it's a living, breathing document that should have, prime real estate on your desk that you're referring to regularly, when others are just like, okay, I asked on Thread yesterday morning. It's Monday morning. What's the first thing you do when you get into the office? And it's like the strangest answers come in. And if you know the plan, you know exactly what you should be doing, then you have key metrics that do it. I mean, it snowballs, right?
Yes.
And you got to have the plan. Where am I going? How am I getting there?
I like that you also say whether the metrics that you're measuring. Now a KPI, a key performance indicator, is a metric. So sometimes when people throw big names like this around, then there's another wall up. Oh my gosh, in addition to strategy, now we're talking about all the other stuff. But you got to think about it this way. Like in your personal life, if you want to lose weight, you know that your calorie intake has to be lower than your calorie burn. So you have two
It's
options. You
law.
eat less, you burn more calories, or you now apparently have the option of taking a drug, which of course most people will prefer because then it doesn't include any work. If you want a better physique, you can go do the work at the gym, or you can go get surgery, which is why a lot of people get surgery because they don't want to do the
The
work.
work. Yep.
Then we go to business and people say, I want to make a lot of money. And then they fail to set the basic principles. And the basic principle for entrepreneurial freedom is, what is it going to look like when I get there?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't do that, then you become a slave to your business. Then the business is the master and you are the slave. And then the
Yes.
business requires you to come in on Saturday to post photos of cats skiing because you desperately need your likes, because by now you've upset your entire family so much that they don't want to be around you because you're intolerable, because you're so miserable and angry because your business is not working. So you try to do all these crazy actions. And so when we talk about entrepreneurial freedom or about strategy or about all these performance indicators, it's like, where do you want to go? How do you measure your success on the way there? And then what are the actions that you need to be taking now to get there? And I'll give you an example. I spoke to someone and she said to me, I have an online course about financial fitness. I said, that's great. She says, I want 100 million people to take this online course. Great. It's $5,000 a pop. Okay. So how many people do you believe are buying a $5,000 financial fitness course that's completely self-guided?
Very few.
Very few. So now if you want 100 million people to invest $5,000 in this, what is your multiple of lead generation to achieve a conversion rate of what, typically 1 to 3%? So now you're looking at what, 1 billion leads to
That's
get to
easy.
that. So I said to her, so how are you going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's when we throw these numbers around, that we don't
Yeah.
have a sense of what the realities are. There's metrics, approximate metrics for most everything already out there. So a
Exactly.
typical opt-in rate, when it's really good, is around what, 20, 23%. If it's
you're lucky,
normal, yeah, if you're lucky, if it's normal, it's what, around 10, 12. Then your conversion from that goes down in the single digits, if people even show up because they're zoomed out. So you have to really think about this. It's like, how are you going to make that goal then happen and then take those actions? That's what's create the profitability and the freedom.
I love it. I love it. And freedom goes away so quickly in the entrepreneurial space. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I doubt it. We started our companies as business owners because we had this idea that we could do something better or different, right? And we had this dream of this lifestyle that the business owner would have. And the reality is that we're sitting here struggling, wearing a dozen different hats, trying to, work 60 hours a week for the worst boss in the world, us, and being the worst employee in the world, us, and making close to whatever it is. And sometimes it's near minimum wage, when you put the hours in to birth this dream. And I think that it would be so much easier on the entrepreneur, the ideal consumer, their family, everybody around them, and the stress, and giving them the freedom that they so wanted if they simply worked from a plan or a strategy.
Yes, 100%, because then you can design which portions of this plan you're going to do. You know what the markers are. When you hit a marker, a certain action happens. So when I get to $250,000, I am now going to hire a salesperson. When I get to 500,000, now I'm going to hire operations or controller. So you also want this strategy in place to help yourself. I had somebody who I spoke to, sometimes these things are really weird. And he says like, well, all we do is work. I said, okay, what's the revenue? He says, well, it's me and my wife, we are at about 2 million. I said, well, that's about as much as you can get to, because that
people.
about a million a person is burnout formula.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that it just is. And then he goes like, yeah, but if I hire somebody, I have to give up some of my profits. And I had the same face that you are having right now. is like, are you building this so you can be enslaved to every
Quality of life?
Quality of, so is that all you do? Well, no, we do everything together. Me, my wife, and our kids, we travel everywhere together. We work together, we live together, we sleep. I said, sounds to me like there's a cost savings plan. So at 2 million in revenue, I would expect that you put some sort of scaling method in there, unless this is the model that you designed. Right. And then they got angry with me because they didn't like what I said. So I think, there's nothing wrong to say, I have figured out how I can maximize my profits with the model that I have set up in this particular way. And I don't want anybody else from the outside to come in. That's okay.
Then be happy with your enslaved lifestyle and your limited or your ceiling on the income that you produce.
Exactly.
So one of the funniest things that I've realized in my practice of helping and coaching clients in my own business experience was that when you hire somebody, you're taking an investment in hiring them, but their goal is to produce at least their revenue, if not multiples of at least their income in revenue, or if not multiples of that. So when you hire somebody, they're not eating away at your profit. They're actually generating at least their income. They're paying for themselves. So to be limited minded in a business and being blocked at 2 million, that's your own doing.
I was absolutely shocked. Because I'm going like, great, you're right there. You can afford to hire somebody good like me to come in and help you put a plan and a structure in place and figure all of this out. And then he goes like, yeah, but then I have to pay you, and then you're going to tell me to hire people, and then I'm going to lose all my profits. I'm like, oh, that's an unusual mindset. Yes.
Yeah, definitely unusual. Again, not everybody is designed to think like a business owner. And that's where folks like you and I come in. When we're consulting with our clients, we can give them a different viewpoint and how to create the lifestyle that they so dreamed of when they started this company, right? Not the enslaved lifestyle that your client had. It's crazy because that's probably the number one goal. I want to have a lot of money and I want more freedom. And they don't think that 60 hours and living, working, eating, sleeping, and capping out at the income level is going to provide that kind of freedom to them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a lot of fear associated with this, Marcia. I do. I don't know what you see. I would assume you see the same thing.
Yeah.
But there's also always your parents' voice in your head. Be grateful with what you got. Don't take any risks now. You worked so hard to get here. Be comfortable, protected. And so when you do a protective gesture, just a hand gesture of protection goes down.
Yep.
If you do a growth gesture, it goes up. So just the thought of protection means that you're pushing the energy downward. It already is limited in its growth. So protection in business kind of is a tough one, because is there any safety in the market right now? Was there any safety before COVID in the market? But people forget so quickly. They say, oh, I just wished it was back to when it was before COVID. You complained just as much before COVID.
Exactly. I think it was harder before COVID. I think that there's, technology and lifestyles and, the acceptability of remote workforces and so on has opened up huge opportunities for business owners today that can think not even outside the box, right on, just continuing as status quo, that there's so many more opportunities, especially in the labor force to gather and grow. But something that you said that kind of hit me, if you're not growing, your company's dying.
Mhm.
And it's like that in any kind of situation, even your bank account. If your bank account is not growing with interest, then you're actually losing money against inflation because the cost of goods and services are more expensive than they were last year. And so we have to constantly think in our business, if we're not growing, we're dying. So
Well,
we're
it's also a principle of a principle in nature.
exactly. And we're not talking about market domination and taking
No.
over the world and becoming the next Amazon. We're talking about continuously innovating, thinking of improving processes, finding additional customers, growing the revenue to offset and fulfill your needs and dreams, the needs and dreams your company provides in the community, and so much more. But you must continue to grow or sell the thing and get out of there.
Yeah. You're absolutely correct. I think it's a very important concept to recognize that if you think that there is a there to get there, there is no there.
No, it's a treadmill. It's constantly going.
Marathon, sprint, whatever,
Yeah.
ultra marathon.
Or the little rat running around or hamster
Exactly.
running
Yes,
on the wheel
exactly.
going nowhere.
I hope not a
Um,
hamster wheel. I hope you guys at least outside and running an ultra marathon, right?
exactly. That sounds fantastic and growing and driving. But yeah, so when we're talking to business owners and we want to keep them in that growth mindset, how do you shift that for them? I mean, mindset is everything. And I think if you need your mindset shifted, you're probably not the right person to be an entrepreneur. But at the same time, we need to keep that growth mindset going. So how do we do that?
Well, I think the first things first. So mindset is a daily practice. There is no ifs or buts around that. Even the best of us who have had success or exits or have mastered mindset to a certain degree, even the greatest spiritual teachers, it's a daily practice.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because there is a internal program, our DNA, what runs in our blood, the memory of everything that was before, our functions of our reptile brains of protection, looking for the enemy, fight or flight, our programming from our parents that, was put into our brains before we were 7, before we had any ability to reject any thought. All of this stuff is constantly running in your system. So unless you do this on a daily basis and you remind yourself, what is the truth in this? What is the truth here today? It's possible. Somebody's doing it. If somebody's doing it, it's possible. It's possible, therefore, for me too. So if it is possible for them and it is possible for me, then the question isn't, can I do it? Then the question is, how can I do it? All right. So what are the actions that I need to be taking to be going into this? So when we talk growth, to answer your question, you need to think about, who do I need to become to be that person that runs the $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, 10 million, 100 million, or $1 billion company? Because what Elon Musk does is probably very different from what a lot of our listeners are doing. He's not going to look at cats skiing. He isn't posting social media things unless, on Twitter, which he just spent $40 billion for.
I was just going to say, unless he's ruining his company.
Well, and that should tell you was this original a good spend of his time? And I think the answer is now here. No, it was a terrible use of his time. But, at least he has some sort of a self-awareness and realized that was a bad idea. Not of course, before opening the door wide open for the
Zuck to come running in with Red.
For Zuck to go like, we got him by the throat. So but let's look at a Mark Cuban, or let's look at like a Richard Branson, or a Bill Gates, or anybody who performs at a really, really high level. They have a very good, strict routine, what they eat, who they work with, their coaches, their performance coaches, their nutrition coaches, their relationship coaches. They are, they have help in all the areas that they already identified that they're not good at, because they understand that is a daily practice. So you now think that you can, with the education that you have, with a couple of years of college that you have, with the 5-10 years of business that you have under your belt, can now emulate the behavior that somebody who's ultra successful has without studying that or learning that or becoming that. You're mistaken. You're deluded.
Mm-hmm.
So even I have had a multi-million-dollar exit. Even I have to remind myself every single day. I have a manifesto, right? I have my manifesto right here.
Love it.
That I read every day, and it talks about what my weight is, what my relationship looks like, what my business looks like, because I want to remind myself every day, this is who I am. This is who
This
I
is the future vision.
choose. Yes. To be. And then
Wow.
what do I need to do to become that?
Wow. I love it. And it's so important, because growth, like I said, if you're not growing, you're dying. So you got to be growing, but you got to have that direction in front of you. And I love that you have it in a manifesto, and you encourage your personal life and your business life, because we're not one or the other. We're both. And oftentimes they get intertwined. But it's the things that we want to drive us and move us forward. If you put that, I guess it's the carrot, right? You're dangling the carrot in front of you, right? You're hanging that there, and you're saying, this is what I strive to become as a company, as a person, as a wife, a mother, a friend, spiritually. This is what I've decided I want. And the best and shortest path to get there is to have a roadmap, a blueprint, a strategy that says, I'm at A now. I want to go to B. GPS says I need to make 3 rights and a left. There Easy. It is. Now go make 3 rights and a left.
Exactly. And if we think about it like this, it's not difficult.
Mm-mm.
It's work, but it's not difficult. So you don't have to reinvent this. There are people out there that have mastered this, that are very good at what they're doing. Lots of coaches and consultants. Why having to prove to yourself that you can do this all by yourself if there are other people out there that can help you?
Agree. It's funny. Athletes all have coaches, right? We all
more than one.
Yes, we all have people, even your friends that you go to ask for advice. In business, now that we're talking about coaching and consulting, in business, you should have many people you ask for guidance from, whether it's paid or mentored or, educated, that you get through. You ask for advice to grow, because many people have done it before you. There's no reason why you have to recreate the wheel. You may tweak it and put your own sprinkles on it, but the path is there. You just have to find it and start walking it and ask for help along the way. But I think that's what I love out of this industry is the potential that so many people have when they open up and ask for help. It's so cool.
Yeah, I think that itself is a mindset shift, because I can look at my high performance coach, and I can say, Jesus, she's expensive. I mean, I'll pay her this much every 3 weeks. When do I not need her anymore? But the way I look at it is, look how far I've already come with her, right? And for me, because I've been a hard charging alpha my entire life, one of the reasons I wanted to work with her is because I really wanted to get in touch with, I don't want to say the feminine side. That sounds not quite right, but really tapping into some of these aspects that sometimes get lost when you're in fight mode your entire life, especially
Mhm.
as a woman, and say, where can I soften? Where can I be just woman? Where can I ask for help? Where do I not have to make all the decisions? Where do I not have to be in charge? And admittedly, for me, add me being German, and add me being a strategist and an architect, and talking about growth architecture, add all of that. Now you have
Very
an idea on,
masculine.
yeah, it's all masculine. And I choose to soften that, because
Mm.
I felt that in order to have a good and successful relationship, I needed to learn on how to pull myself back. And I'm not always good at it. But so I look at this now and say, well, with the help of somebody who I pay a lot of money to, I have gotten this far. Now imagine how much further I can go
Yeah,
when I do the next part of the transformation,
I
and then the
love it.
next part of the transformation. So I don't look at it as over. I look at it as a journey.
And I think that that's great, because if you look backwards too, where would I have been if I had not, or where could I have been if I'd started earlier, or what would have happened if I never did, right? Using help and guidance for your growth, right?
Mhm.
Personal or business, and we're talking primarily business here. You're paying for speed. You're paying for the shortcut and the
Shortcuts.
knowledge and the information and the support to get you to where you need to go. Because, with Google out there, we could all type it in and find an answer somewhere, but that's not the answer, is not what you're always needing. It's the different viewpoint. It's the different path. It's the step by step or the experience and knowledge that will help you get there faster.
You're absolutely correct. And there is no honor badge, by the way. There is no Girl Scout, Boy Scout that's going to come in 10 years, or when we are at your graveside, and it's going to say,
Oh,
you
you
know
did it all
what?
by yourself.
Did it all by yourself. Congratulations. Because then guess what? Nobody's going to be there.
I was just going to say, it makes for a lonely life. It makes for a lonely life. Oh my gosh. Beate, this was a wonderful conversation about business growth and the things that we all need. Every single business owner needs to have this conversation with themselves in the mirror sometimes and go, what am I missing? Where are my goals and where are my gaps? And what do I need to do? And I find that this is just it's good. It's really good, and it's essential for everyone to succeed, because we can only do so much on our own. We need people. It takes a village to raise a child, right? It takes a village to raise a company as well.
Exactly. I mean, yes, truly, truly, truly it does. Well, I really appreciate having been on your
Yeah.
show, and I want to encourage all your listeners to return the favor, and please go wherever you pick up the podcast and give Marcia's podcast a 5-star review,
Oh, you're so
and
kind. Thank you.
and a comment, please, and with a takeaway from today, and share this with one other person who needs to hear what we were talking about today, because
I
it
love it.
is a labor of love, and she gives you all the love. Give her a little bit of love back.
Oh, you're so nice. That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. But it's been such a passion project for me to do this project. Now 200 and 13, 14, 15 episodes in. It's been fantastic. But let's flip this back to you. Where can listeners find out more about you, Beate, and your path and your message that you're doing? Because this was just a brief introduction into really truly how you can grow with the growth architect.
Thank you so much. Yes, I mean, the easiest way is, I encourage you all to take a look at what your number one growth blocker is. Go check out our free quiz. You find it at growthblockerquiz.com. If you heard anything on our episode here today where you say, I may need to reach out to her, please do so. Go to uncoverysession.com. Make sure you mention the show, and then we'll gift you a 15-minute uncovery session to figure out what that growth blocker is and what you can do to remove it.
Awesome. Thank you. Those are really valuable. And I know that you also do a great newsletter that I'm on, and I read it each week and I'm like, oh, that was good. Right. And so getting little tidbits, you don't, even if it's just something, to stay included in the space and thinking about your constant growth journey. So I love it.
100%.
Yeah. All right, listeners, I hope you found a couple ideas that we've been talking about today that you can put into your business and make your business more profitable. And while you're at it, a friendly reminder to join my friends and I for Accelerate Now on Saturday, July 29th. This is a brief 2-hour investment in your Saturday where you're going to have 4 experts sharing 12 powerful strategies that will accelerate your business. And again, it only takes one to change your life and your business. So go register at joinaccelerate.now.com. And Beate and I would love to hear your questions, feedback. Tell us what your growth problem is, or maybe what the last thing you did that gave you a big boost, or some big aha that you got out of the show that you want to put into your growth plan. So comment on today's podcast. Let us know, and Beate and I will comment back on your feedback there. And while you're at it, please subscribe. You don't want to miss future shows. And you can catch Profit with a Plan on any of your favorite podcast players. And we're looking forward to more great profitable information on next week's show. So until then, make your plans and profit with them. Thank you so much, Beate.